Have you ever paused your day not to scroll, not to escape, but to reconnect? In a world that's rushing faster than our minds can keep up with, we often forget to ask, what am I aligning myself with? Today, I want to take you into something that might feel foreign at first, but by the end, I promise it will feel familiar to your soul. You've seen it. People turning towards one direction, standing, bowing, and placing their heads to the ground. You may have wondered, why do they do this? What if I told you it's not just a ritual, it's a rhythm of the soul? What if I told you it's not about religion, but about remembrance, and maybe, just maybe, there's something in it for you too? Because whether or not you were raised to pray like this, every human heart craves connection. Every soul seeks stillness. So today, let's explore this sacred practice not with judgment, but with curiosity. Not to convert, but to connect. And who knows, by the end of this, it just might make perfect sense. When we think of prayer, many of us picture routines, recitations, or rituals repeated daily. We might even assume it's something people do to appear spiritual or meet expectations. But prayer in its purest form is not a performance, it's presence. It's the soul stepping out of the noise and into the stillness. It's not about impressing anyone else, it's about realigning yourself with the only one who truly knows you. The moment you stand to pray, you're not putting on a show, you're showing up. Just as you are tired, broken, hopeful, or unsure. And in that space, there is no script for perfection. There is only sincerity. The most powerful prayers aren't the loudest ones. They're the most honest. And that honesty invites presence. It invites connection. It reminds you that you were never as far as you thought, you just needed to be still. When Muslims pray, it may seem like repetition from the outside, but on the inside, something deeper is happening. Every word recited in Arabic is a spiritual key unlocking a state of presence. The prayer begins with the words Allah Akbar, meaning God is greater, not just as a declaration, but as a reminder that no problem, no pain, no distraction is bigger than the peace waiting on the other side of that moment. That phrase signals a shift from the external to the internal, from the worldly to the eternal. The mind starts to settle, the heart begins to soften, and the soul feels seen. Prayer is a pause in a world obsessed with productivity. And ironically, it's in that pause that you become most present because you finally remember who you are beyond all the titles, roles, and rush. Presence isn't something you stumble into by accident, it's something you practice. And prayer, especially the way it's structured in Islam, teaches that practice 5 times a day. It becomes a rhythm, a breath, a conscious return. You see, presence isn't just about being aware of where you are. It's about being available emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It's about saying, here I am. Not perfect, not put together, but present. And that alone is powerful. When you pray like this, you're not checking a box, you're building a bond. You're not earning love, you're experiencing it. You're not escaping reality, you're stepping into a higher one. A reality where peace doesn't depend on circumstances, but on connection. And this is what most people miss. Prayer isn't about getting something from God. It's about giving yourself back to God. That's why it's not a performance. It's not for others to see. It's not for applause. It's for awareness. In a world of likes and follows, prayer invites you to be invisible to everyone but visible to divine. And in that invisibility, you are fully seen. That's where healing happens. That's where gratitude grows. That's where peace takes root. When the world tells you to prove your worth, prayer reminds you that you already have it. When the world tells you to perform, prayer tells you to just be. Not perfect, not polished, just present. And that is enough. We often think of rituals as repetitive or even restrictive. But what if ritual is actually a reflection of rhythm? Not just the rhythm of our lives, but the rhythm of the universe itself, the rising and setting of the sun, the inhale and exhale of every breath, the beat of your heart, the changing of the tides. These are not random occurrences, they are ordered, intentional, sacred. When Muslims pray 5 times a day, it's not just tradition, it's alignment. It's harmonizing the human soul with the eternal rhythm of existence. It's remembering that life isn't chaotic, even if it feels that way. Life has rhythm. And every prayer becomes a drumbeat that brings you back into sync. Not just with your faith, but with your breath, your body, your purpose. Ritual isn't restriction, it's the restoration of rhythm in a world that constantly tries to pull you off beat. The 5 daily prayers in Islam are beautifully timed not randomly, but with intention that mirrors the cycle of life. The first is at dawn, just before the sun rises. It's a moment of renewal, of awakening not just from sleep, but from spiritual forgetfulness. Then comes the midday prayer, reminding us to pause in the midst of our busyness and recenter. The afternoon prayer arrives as the day begins to fade, when our energy dips and distractions rise. The sunset prayer marks the close of the day, encouraging reflection. And finally, the night prayer brings everything to stillness, asking us to surrender. Each prayer is like a sacred checkpoint, grounding you in the present while aligning you with something greater. It's not a disruption, it's a rhythm woven into your day to remind you that time is sacred and presence is power. What makes this rhythm so transformative is not just when you pray, but how you pray. The movements standing, bowing, prostrating aren't arbitrary gestures. They're physical manifestations of inner transformation. Standing symbolizes readiness. Bowing reflects respect. Prostration, where your forehead touches the ground, is the ultimate surrender. It's the rhythm of humility. The flow of prayer teaches you that stillness is strength and movement can be mindfulness. Just as a dancer finds freedom in choreography, a soul can find freedom in sacred structure. It's in the rhythm that we find release. You don't have to feel aligned to get aligned. Sometimes showing up to the ritual realigns you with the rhythm you didn't even realize you had lost. And isn't that what we all crave, rhythm? In our relationships, in our work, in our thoughts. We feel most lost when life feels out of sync. That's why rituals like prayer aren't about controlling your day, they're about calibrating your soul. You don't have to be Muslim to understand that the body and spirit are connected. That when you move with intention, your thoughts follow. That when you pause with purpose, your peace grows. Ritual reminds us that rhythm is healing, that every moment can be sacred if we bring presence to it, that we weren't meant to just survive time, we were created to flow with it. And in every step, bow, and still moment, we're reminded you don't need to escape your life to feel divine. You just need to return to rhythm. We often chase passion and inspiration, waiting for the perfect moment to feel motivated. But what if the secret to deep devotion isn't in the feelings, but in the discipline? Real connection doesn't grow in the highs, it's nurtured in the habits. That's the wisdom embedded in the 5 daily prayers Muslims observe. Not every prayer feels powerful. Not every moment is emotionally charged, but they still show up. And that's what creates devotion: consistency over convenience. The act of returning to the same sacred space 5 times a day tells the soul you matter. This matters. Discipline is often seen as boring or burdensome, but in truth, it's the foundation of real love. Just like brushing your teeth, eating clean, or nurturing a relationship, discipline keeps the important things alive, even when you don't feel like it. Eventually, that steady rhythm transforms into genuine devotion. Think about anything meaningful in life: your health, your relationships, your dreams. None of them thrive on occasional attention. They require daily care, even when it's inconvenient. Prayer in Islam is a clear example of this principle. It's not done when it's easy, it's done because it's necessary. And in doing so, it becomes more than a duty, it becomes a desire. People often say, I'll pray when I feel spiritual, or I'll meditate when I'm in the right mindset. But that's like saying, I'll drink water when I'm fully hydrated. The act itself is what creates the state of mind. Muslims pray even when tired, busy, overwhelmed, because the discipline reminds the heart of what truly matters. And the beauty is that devotion eventually follows. You don't have to feel it to be faithful. You just have to show up long enough for your soul to catch up. True devotion isn't about intensity, it's about intention. It's waking up for dawn prayer when the bed is warm and sleep is sweet. It's pausing a meeting, a meal, or a moment of rest to say, there's something bigger than me I need to connect with. And in that decision, every time the soul gets a little stronger. This kind of discipline doesn't just benefit spiritual life, it strengthens character in every area. It teaches patience, self-control, purpose. It helps you develop the muscle of showing up, especially when it's hardest. Because that's where growth happens. Prayer isn't just about worship, it's about becoming the kind of person who keeps promises. Especially to the one who already knows your struggles. Discipline doesn't just train your schedule, it trains your spirit. And eventually that creates a bond nothing can shake. And here's what most people overlook. Discipline doesn't confine you, it frees you. It creates stability in a world of chaos. It becomes the anchor in emotional storms. When life gets unpredictable, that small consistent act becomes your sacred ground. Muslims may pray at the same times each day, but no two prayers are ever exactly the same because you're never the same. The discipline is the structure, but devotion is the transformation that happens within it. You don't pray 5 times a day to impress God, you pray to remind yourself that you're already loved by Him. That reminder builds day by day like water shaping stone, and before you know it, the discipline that once felt difficult becomes the devotion that makes you whole. Because in showing up again and again, you become someone new, someone connected, clear, and deeply devoted. We often separate the physical from the spiritual as if movement belongs to the body and meaning belongs to the soul. But in truth, the two were never meant to be divided. In the Islamic prayer, every movement has a message, every posture carries purpose. Standing tall, bowing low, falling into prostration, it's not just exercise, it's expression. It's a way of speaking through the body what the heart cannot always say. We spend so much time disconnected from ourselves, living in our heads. But when the body bows, when the forehead touches the ground, we return to presence. We reconnect. These movements don't drain us, they refuel us. They quiet the mind. They open the heart. In every motion there's emotion. In every gesture there's grace. The physical becomes the portal to the spiritual, and the soul begins to remember who it is. Each step in the prayer sequence holds symbolic power. When you stand, it's a declaration, here I am. It reflects readiness, strength, and presence. You're standing before the Creator, but also standing up within yourself. It's a powerful reminder that you were made to rise. Then comes the bowing where the back bends and the ego softens. It's a moment of humility, acknowledging that there's something beyond intellect and ambition, something higher, wiser, and more eternal. The bow is not weakness. It's surrender with awareness, and finally prostration, the most profound posture of all. Face to the earth, heart above the head. It is a reversal of the usual hierarchy. In this moment, you're not thinking your way to God, you're feeling your way back. The body drops low, but the soul rises high. That's the paradox. The more you lower yourself in humility, the higher you ascend in spirit. These movements are not empty gestures. They are embedded with psychological and emotional healing. Modern science confirms what ancient traditions have always known: your posture influences your mindset. When you stand with confidence, you feel stronger. When you kneel or bow, you experience relief. Islamic prayer intuitively captures this truth. It's a sequence designed to align your mind, body, and spirit. No words are wasted. No movement is meaningless. Each one grounds you. Each one elevates you. And because the prayer happens consistently 5 times a day, it becomes a sacred reset for the nervous system, a pause the heart, a break for the mind. It's not just spiritual, it's deeply human. It reminds us that we were never meant to live disconnected from our bodies. Our spirituality begins right where we are on the ground, with breath, with motion. In a time when so many people seek mindfulness, peace, and purpose, this sacred practice offers all three through physical expression. You don't need perfect words, you just need a willing posture. You just need to show up and move with meaning. And over time, those movements will reshape your inner world. Because what you do with your body, you begin to feel in your soul. The prayer isn't just an obligation, it's an opportunity. An opportunity to breathe, to bow, to become. You're not just kneeling, you're surrendering. You're not just standing, you're awakening. You're not just moving, you're aligning. And in that alignment, there is healing. There is strength. There is spiritual power waiting to be awakened through every motion. The postures may be quiet, but their impact echoes deep into the soul. One of the most beautiful aspects of prayer in Islam is that no matter where you go in the world, from the deserts of Morocco to the streets of New York, you'll find people praying in the exact same way. Same direction, same words, same movements. That's not coincidence, it's unity. A global synchrony that transcends language, culture, and background. And yet, within that sameness, there's something deeply personal. Because behind every bowed head is a unique story. Behind every whispered word is a specific pain, hope, or gratitude. The movements may be unified, but the meanings are infinite. That's the paradox of prayer. It brings people together not by erasing identity, but by honoring individuality within structure. When millions move as one, we're reminded you are never alone. Your struggle is not isolated. We're different souls in the same sacred rhythm. We live in a world that often glorifies individuality while forgetting the power of collective experience. But prayer, especially in the way Muslims practice it, is a fusion of both. It's a shared choreography of devotion. Whether you're wealthy or struggling, whether you speak Arabic fluently or not at all, when you stand in prayer, you're part of something bigger. It doesn't matter what clothes you wear, what job you have, or how many followers you've gained. In that moment, everyone is equal, side by side, shoulder to shoulder. That physical closeness is symbolic. It reflects a deeper unity of purpose. Yet, within that unity, every soul is on a different journey. One may be praying for healing, another for forgiveness, another for clarity. The structure is the same, but the spirit is entirely personal. This is the beauty of spiritual unity. It celebrates diversity, not conformity. It's easy to feel isolated in today's world. We scroll through highlight reels. We compare our worst days to someone else's best moments. But when you witness millions bowing in the same direction, following the same rhythm, you realize we're all reaching for something beyond ourselves. The same way birds migrate together in formation or waves crash in patterns, humans too crave alignment. Not just with each other, but with something higher. Muslim prayer offers this alignment 5 times a day as a reset, not just for the individual, but for the community. It becomes a space where the ego dissolves and all that remains is intention. And that intention unites us, even if our lives look different. Because when we bow, we're not bowing to tradition, we're bowing to truth. And truth unites every seeking soul. And here's the deeper insight: unity doesn't mean uniformity. You're allowed to feel different things, to need different answers, to carry different weights. What binds us is not our sameness, it's our shared search for meaning. Prayer doesn't demand that we all feel the same. It simply invites us to show up, to move together, to stand in harmony even as our hearts speak different languages. That's what makes this ritual so powerful. It's a mirror of humanity, different faces, different journeys, one shared rhythm. One purpose. So when you see millions praying the same way, don't just see a ritual, see a reminder. A reminder that even when you feel different, you still belong. You're part of something sacred, something vast. A world of souls, each unique, each seen moving in unity toward peace. In a world that's constantly shouting notifications, conversations, advertisements, it's easy to believe that volume equals value. That if you're not loud, you're not heard. But the truth is, some of the most powerful messages are delivered in silence. Muslim prayer reminds us of this in the most sacred way. Parts of the prayer are spoken softly, others are completely silent. And yet, that silence isn't empty, it's full. It's a space where words end and the soul begins to speak. Because sometimes the deepest healing happens not when you're saying everything, but when you're saying nothing. Silence isn't absence, it's presence. A full, rich awareness. It invites you inward. It tunes you into something beyond the noise of this world. And in that stillness, your heart begins to whisper what it's truly been feeling. What noise conceals, silence reveals. Many of us fear silence because we associate it with loneliness. But prayer teaches us that silence can be intimacy. In those quiet moments during Salah, the connection between the soul and its source becomes unfiltered. There's no audience, no performance, just you, your breath, and your creator. In that silence, there is safety. There is space to feel, to cry, to reflect. When you stand in the quiet of prayer, you're not disconnected, you're deeply connected to something greater than yourself. Words can fail us, they can feel repetitive, awkward, or incomplete. But silence has no grammar, no rules. It allows the heart to express what language can't carry. That's the paradox. The quieter you become, the more clearly you begin to hear, not with your ears, but with your spirit. Think about it. How often do we fill our days with noise just to avoid what we need to face? The television plays in the background. The music is always on. The scroll never ends. But in prayer, silence is invited, not avoided. It becomes a mirror. It reflects our inner state back to us. Are you anxious? Hurting? Searching? In silence, you'll know. But more importantly, in silence, you'll begin to heal. Muslim prayer gives space for that between the verses, between the movements, between the breaths. These pauses aren't accidents. They're sacred design. Because growth doesn't just come from what you say. It comes from what you're willing to sit with, and when we allow silence in, we create room for awareness, acceptance, and alignment. There's a quiet strength in those who don't need noise to feel significant. Prayer teaches you that. It shows you how to sit with the stillness, not to escape, but to encounter. In that sacred silence, there's clarity. You begin to separate the essential from the excess. You stop trying to control the narrative and start trusting the connection. That silence becomes an act of surrender. And surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The same way the earth rests before it blooms, your soul rests in silence before it awakens. So when you see someone kneeling quietly, whispering words only they and God can hear, know that something powerful is happening. In that stillness, something eternal is being built. Because when it comes to faith, peace, and purpose, silence doesn't weaken the message, it amplifies it. There's a moment in Muslim prayer that stops everything, the moment of prostration when the forehead touches the ground. To an outsider, it might seem like just another posture, but spiritually, it's the deepest form of surrender. It's the body's most vulnerable position, and yet it's the soul's highest ascent. You're not bowing in defeat, you're bowing in awareness. You're acknowledging that everything you have, everything you are, is a gift. That you didn't create the air you breathe, the life you live. And in that realization, the ego softens. The need to control dissolves. You come face to face with your creator, not with pride, but with peace. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not stand tall, but fall low in sincerity. Prostration isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's where your smallness meets divine greatness. What's extraordinary about prostration is that the lowest physical position becomes the highest spiritual one. In that moment, you're lower than anything else around you, and yet spiritually you are closer to God than at any other point in the prayer. That's not by accident, that's divine symbolism. It teaches you something profound. Humility elevates. Our culture often chases power through image, through performance, through control. But the real power lies in surrender, in knowing that you don't need to have all the answers, that you're not defined by your success, your title, or your status. You are defined by your connection. And nothing strengthens that connection more than humility. When your forehead touches the earth, all the illusions of status fade. What's left is your essence, pure, honest, and deeply aligned with the divine. Prostration also connects us to the earth literally. It's a moment that brings us back to our origin. We were created from clay, from dust, and in prostration, we return to that truth. But instead of feeling low, it actually grounds us. It reminds us that even in our most fragile state, we are held. We are seen. We are heard. In a world where people feel invisible unless they're loud or noticed, prostration is the opposite. It's silent, it's unseen. And yet, it's where your soul is most visible to the one who truly matters. You don't need an audience to be significant. You just need authenticity. And there's nothing more authentic than a soul bowed in humility, whispering truths in silence that only God can hear. That's real power. This posture of prostration becomes even more beautiful when you realize it's not about shame, it's about freedom. Freedom from pride, freedom from pretense, freedom from the pressure to always have it together. You can weep in that posture, you can tremble, you can break, and still be closer to God than ever before. That's why so many people, when life becomes too heavy, fall to their knees not because they're weak, but because their soul remembers this is where healing begins. On the ground, with the heart open and the ego quiet, prostration doesn't crush your worth, it restores it. Because when you lower yourself in sincerity, the divine lifts you in grace, and from that sacred ground you rise again, not with arrogance, but with peace, purpose, and strength. We live in an age where time slips through our fingers like sand. We're constantly rushing, meeting deadlines, replying to messages, checking boxes. But in the midst of that chaos, there's something profound about sacred pauses. In Islam, the 5 daily prayers aren't random, they're placed at specific moments throughout the day, and each one acts like a spiritual anchor. While the world tells us to hustle harder, these moments of prayer tell us to pause and return. They ground us. They remind us that life isn't just about what we produce, it's about who we're becoming. When you begin and end your day with intention, when you realign at noon, at afternoon, and at sunset, you create rhythm. You create mindfulness. Prayer becomes a compass in the blur of time. It's not just a habit, it's a heartbeat that reconnects you to your deeper self. Imagine the chaos of life as an ocean, constantly moving, unpredictable, and full of waves. Without an anchor, you drift, you lose direction, you lose yourself, but prayer is that anchor. It holds you in place when everything else wants to pull you away. It brings you back to what matters most, your purpose, your presence, your peace. Each prayer reminds you that no matter what you're going through, stress, confusion, joy, sorrow, there is always a space where you can reset. You don't have to wait until you're burnt out or broken. The gift of structured time means you build in restoration before you're empty. That kind of rhythm doesn't just protect your soul, it strengthens it. It shapes how you handle everything else. Because when time becomes sacred, so does your energy, your thoughts, your intentions. We often say, I don't have time to pray, when in reality, it's prayer that gives us time. It gives us clarity. It gives us perspective. It slows down the racing mind and allows us to breathe with purpose. The discipline of stopping what you're doing 5 times a day isn't about losing time, it's about reclaiming it. Think of it like spiritual gravity. Just like the earth needs gravity to stay grounded, the soul needs sacred time to stay aligned. You don't drift as easily when you know you're returning to something meaningful. You don't get as lost when there's a lighthouse guiding your day. That's what prayer is, structured moments of remembrance that transform your entire experience of time. It turns the clock from a countdown into a call to reconnect. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about time-bound prayer is that it teaches us presence. When you only have a few minutes, those minutes become precious. You stop multitasking. You slow down. You listen inward. In a world of endless distractions, that is revolutionary. You begin to see that time itself is not the enemy, it's the teacher. It reminds you to honor your now, to build from the inside out. The prayers don't take away your freedom, they guide it. They transform scattered living into intentional living, and in that intention you find peace. Because time, when used with purpose, becomes more than just hours and minutes, it becomes meaning. It becomes memory. It becomes a sacred rhythm that not only grounds your day but elevates your soul. Prayer isn't just a ritual, it's a rhythm, a return, a realignment. It's not about performance but presence. It teaches that devotion isn't born in emotion, but in discipline. Through movement, silence, humility, and time, it connects the body to the soul and the soul to the divine. Muslim prayer is a living reminder that we're not just surviving through our days, we're called to be anchored in them. In every prostration, there's power. In every pause, there's peace. And in every act of surrender, there's strength. This isn't just about one religion or one way, it's about understanding that within structure, there is freedom. Within stillness, there is clarity. Whether you're Muslim or simply curious, this practice holds universal lessons. Be present, be humble, be intentional. Because the way we pray shapes the way we live. And maybe, just maybe, that's what your soul's been searching for.